Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I want to discuss what your standards should be as a man when dating, especially as a traditional or Christian man, because everyone wants to talk about what women's standards should be and how men need to step up and do better, and they're just not good enough for the women. Or especially in church conversations, it's always about how there's all these great women and these men just need to step up and stop being cowards, or take control and be masculine, although at the same time those churches won't let the men actually be masculine in the ways that they should be. And so I'm here to tell you that your standards for women and in dating, and especially in the West, actually aren't high enough. Now you're probably thinking, well, if I raise my standards, then there's not going to be a lot of women left. Well, it's going to be that way regardless. But that's why I preach on this channel, looking for additional options, not just in America and the West, but overseas in different parts of the country where traditional masculine values are actually admired and they're actually valued in a way that will help you and it'll be consistent with your beliefs and your lifestyle. You see, churches have become so overwhelmed and overrun by feminism, by women in leadership positions, and even a lot of the men are compromised when it comes to this ideology. And they have no problem throwing other men under the bus, or you'll hear for every one sermon addressing the women and their roles in the household and what they should be doing and how they should be a helpmate in supporting their man, and how maybe they value their careers too much. Maybe they need to put that aside to help support the man and his goals and his leadership for the family. For every one of those sermons, if you even get one of those, you'll get 500 discussing how men have failed. Men need to step up. You've got these poor women just waiting for these men, and they're all useless. They're all terrible. And of course, there's men out there who I don't think are very good, and I don't think they're really doing a good job at being masculine. Of course, that's going to exist. But overall, if you look at the statistics, I'm going to cover this in another video. In terms of Gen Z, there's more men attending church in the Gen Z generation than Gen Z women. So I was vindicated on that, and because I talked about that months ago, how Gen Z men are going to churches, they're conservative, they're masculine, they're traditional, and they're not finding any women or women at all that match their values. And I was 100% correct on that. That's what's happening in the West right now. So as a man, if you have these standards, if you have what you want in a woman, you want her to fulfill her duties in the household, you want her to support your goals and your mission and your drive in life. How are you going to do that in the West if the pool of women available is even smaller than before and is dwindling? If we look at the belief gap between men and women in terms of conservative and liberal, in America or in the West, that gap is increasing ever more. What is your options at that point? And even a lot of people in these Christian circles still think dating is like it was 15 years ago. And it's not. It's not even like it was 15 years ago. It's not even like what it was 10 years ago. And it's certainly not what it was 30 years ago in the 90s. So a lot of these influencers and Christian influencers who are good, meaning masculine ones, are still actually stuck in like the early 2000s, 90s mindset. It's not even like that anymore. It's evolved way past that. It's way more dystopian than they can even imagine. So for you, what are your options? Well, you're going to have to take a little bit different route than most people if you want a traditional relationship. Are there some traditional conservative women in the US? Of course. Are they easy to find? I would say the answer is no. Not in the sense that you want. And you need to determine for yourselves what exactly your standards are and what you're willing to put up with in terms of how traditional a woman needs to be. Some men don't need women to be that traditional, and it works for them, then that's fine. But I think a growing number of men are seeing, hey, I do want, a relationship that was acceptable 60, 70 years ago and has been the norm for almost all of human existence until the mid 20th century, when now all of a sudden, just uncorrelatively, everyone is depressed, unhappy, and birth rates are at all-time low. I wonder if there's a correlation there. So a lot of men are figuring out that that's actually what they want, but they're going out and taking the advice of these men. Well, you just need to go to church and date these women. These women are there. Well, no, these women are not there. These women don't share these beliefs, and even most women in churches are still covertly feminist. They're actually still covertly brainwashed by this ideology on some level. Now, they may be different shades of conservative and traditional, and they may be enough on the spectrum for it to be acceptable for you and your standards, but they're still to some degree at a base level brainwashed by this feminism because of how they've come up in America and the West. So it's not going to be compatible with you because they still have this deeply ingrained in them. And the incentive structure is built on women being this way. There's actually no incentives really, other than some personal ingenuity, for women to take the traditional route. All of society and even these churches and groups are encouraging women to remain that way and to remain feminist. And you know what? You should be like a pastor, and you should be a religious leader, and like you should also be boss babe CEO, and you should have maybe 1 or 2 kids when you're in your late 30s. That's what's being pushed in a lot of churches right now. Is that really dateable material? Is that really marriage material for a lot of these traditional men? It's not. It's absolutely not. And trying to gaslight Gen Z men into thinking, oh, your trad wife is there. If you just show up to church, she'll be there. I think a lot of them are catching on that this is just not mapping out with reality. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. Not saying it's not. But I think there's not enough of these kind of women to go around for all the traditional Gen Z men. The competition will be, very high, and it's just not going to be a worthwhile pursuit. So what you need to do, stop accepting lower standards of women who are not traditional, who are not going to fit that value, who are not going to let you be the leader in the household. Don't accept that. Instead, go for what you actually want, which is a traditional woman who will serve you in the household, will take care of you, one you can provide for if you fulfill your masculine duties. That's the first thing, is you need your own mission, you need your own drive, you need your own purpose in life, you need to be building yourself up, and then you find a helpmate, a woman to help you with that and help support you with that. Not the other way around. You don't find the woman and then you become this man. No. First, you start building up your own life, finding your own drive, building your own businesses, your own side projects, building your career, whatever that happens to be, your personal pursuits, your passions. You spend your time building that up, and along the way, you find the woman to complement you. Now, a lot of you are just struggling with location. A lot of you are building up your life, and you're working on that. That's awesome. You're getting in the gym, you're getting fit, you're getting removed and away from the system that is sucking you dry. You're investing in cryptocurrencies or outside of fiat money sources. That's excellent. But you just haven't found the woman to complement you, because it's not your fault. The supply is low in the West. So what I support and what I offer as an option to men on this channel is looking overseas for this, for a potential wife or spouse, girlfriend, whatever phase of life you seem to be in. Look into this aspect, raise your standards and go, you know what, I can actually find that somewhere. My problem is a problem of location, because if you go to places like South America, Asia, Eastern Europe, these women are much more in supply than in America, Canada, United Kingdom, or Australia. That's just the reality of the situation. Just most men never consider this an option. They've been told by their boomer overlords that if they just go to church and find the cute girl there, then it'll all work out happily ever after. No, as it turns out, it's not 1964 anymore. Women have sustained decades of indoctrination, decades in systematic programming, and it's not going to all get reversed in a few years. It's going to take a while for it to get reversed. So what do you do as a man in the meantime? You research these locations, and I have videos on that, and I go to these places. Research what would be interesting to visit, where you can continue to build your life and your business, what kind of women you're interested in, and seriously consider this and look into this, because as soon as you venture out to these places and you meet the women there and you meet the women outside of the West, the traditional values that they have and how they're willing to treat men and respect them will absolutely blow your mind and will make you not want to date in the US any further. If you dip your toe in that water, if you experience what it's like, and then you go somewhere else, it just will completely change your mindset and you will not want to go back at all. So, if you're in the US, I suggest trying dating there as a Christian man. Give it a shot, traditional man. See what it's like. Maybe you'll find something that fits. That happens for men sometimes. But if you're not experiencing success, then I think it's time for you to change your direction and move on a bit, and that's what this channel is here for. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments on what I discussed here, I'd love to hear a comment down below. Any of the topics I can bring up and talk about, please leave a comment there, like and subscribe to the channel. And anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.